Hi, I'm Aaron from Complify, and this is an overview of the scope review stage of a data room assessment in Complify. To begin, choose More Detail from the list of assessments, which brings up a list of all controls in that standard. This list will show the current scope of each control, and the graph on the left showing scope review % complete shows how many controls have been submitted and accepted by the assessor, along with the next few stages of the assessment. The first stage of the assessment is to agree on the scope with your assessor. Each individual control has a description from the standard with the ability to either edit the scope, comment, or submit the scope as is to the assessor. In this case, we're going to submit that this control is scoped. And if we click on the Preview Assessor view, we'll see what an assessor would see. In this case, only one control has been shared, and an assessor can see it scoped. The rest, the assessor doesn't have access to yet. So we can go through each control and submit them individually or edit them by clicking Edit. On the Explorer page, it will take us directly to the control we selected, and we can choose to change its scope from in scope to not scoped or compensated. When we return to the assessment view, we will see that the scope for that control was changed to not scoped. We can submit each of these controls individually, or submit all controls by choosing the Submit All button at the bottom of the screen. This submits the entire standard to the assessor for approval, and now at this point we can look at what an assessor would see. After the scope's been submitted, each individual control has a status. Controls that were chosen as scoped are automatically accepted by the system because there's nothing the assessor needs to do to approve them. Not scoped and compensated controls can be reviewed by the assessor. The assessor can add comments, reopen a control that the user needs to address, or approve the scope as is. When adding a comment, an assessor can ask a question or simply record data that they want attached to this scope. In order to complete the scope review stage, an assessor will need to approve all not scoped and compensated controls individually. In this case, the assessor has a question about the second control, but the rest he's approving. At this point, 99% of scope review is complete. Only a single control is left as an open request. Its scope is shown as not submitted. When we switch back to the user view, we see that it's a not scoped control and that there's an open question from the assessor. We can add a comment to reply to this request or add more detail to explain why this control should not be in scope for your environment. This then is submitted to the assessor, and at this point the user has completed all open requests and the final control is waiting for the assessor to approve it. However, let's say in this example, someone else changes the scope of a control that's active in this assessment. They'll get a warning message saying, "Are you sure you want to change this?" It will affect the assessment. When they've confirmed this action, the assessment is now going to show that it's an open request because the new scope has not yet been submitted to the assessor, even though previously it was a scoped control that had been approved. So at this point, we will need to resubmit this control, and the assessor will need to approve both controls that have been submitted. When I log in as an assessor, I'll see the two controls, one that has more explanation for why it should be not scoped and can individually approve it, and once the last control has been approved, 100% of the scope review stage has been completed. The assessor and the user have agreed upon what the scope should be of the assessment, and the next stage is evidence review, which will be covered in the next video.